On her plate, she also works with the Granny Peace Brigade and the Grandmothers Against the War. Lillian is our resident devil's advocate. She firstly questions our decisions and forces us to rethink our positions. Yes, Lillian is formidable. Sometimes, but she is often right too. Activism is nothing new to Lillian, who began her activist career when she became the first female dispatcher in the National Maritime Union, for which she got tons of publicity at the time. She had grown up in a small coal mining town in Pennsylvania and moved to Baltimore during World War II to work at the Aberdeen Proving Grounds. When she went to work in the Maritime Union, she found her home, so to speak. As she says, I was thrilled to be working for a union because I was raised to believe in the rights of working people. It didn't hurt that she met her first husband there, also who was a merchant seaman. Some years later, after moving to New York, Lillian worked for about 20 years in the printing industry, from production to estimating to selling. During this time, she remained politically active and organized campaigns of all sorts. She was particularly active in the anti-Vietnam War movement, and before that, had opposed the Korean War. Lillian has always been, and still is, a leftist. We must treasure the Lillians of the world because they are the ones who fought for better benefits for the working class and to preserve basic rights for us all. Lillian says, I have a wonderful daughter and I've had 2 wonderful marriages. If I were to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. How many of us can say that on the far side of our lives? They don't make people like Lillian Rydell anymore. And with that, I would like to invite people here to just share a story, if you would, take a minute or a couple minutes to tell a story.
Do I have to stand up?
You can do whatever you want to do.
I'll say, yeah.
Oh, maybe for the sake of Lorinda.
Posterity.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to save this.
I'm Sheila. I'm Lillian's niece, and I'm going to give you a different side of Aunt Lil. I've always been aware of Aunt Lily's activism. She was one of 3. My mother passed away in 1969, and my Aunt Bessie, who lived in Virginia and Baltimore, I never really saw her a lot. So Aunt Lily was always around, sort of filling in the gaps for me about what it was like growing up in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, what my mother was like when she was small. But when I think about my Aunt Lily, very fondly, because she was my favorite aunt, as we say in Connecticut, I have to think about the words that come to mind, and one of the words that come to mind is that she was completely intolerant of ignorance and stupidity. I think ignorance you can deal with. I mean, you can educate yourself, you don't have to be ignorant, but she really had no patience for stupidity. And neither did my mother, her sister. And I remember as a little girl, my mother used to say something like, stupidity is forever. And there is a toilet for every rear end, but stupidity is forever. And I remember that my aunt was always, taught me to be very independent, not to let anybody get in your way, to be thoughtful of other people's feelings, but don't let them stand in your way. That you could do whatever you needed to do, just get up and do it. She taught us that, you can sit and wish away, you can wish away and wish, but, if you're expecting somebody to come and do it for you, nothing's ever going to happen. If you want something to get done, just get up and do it. My Aunt Lily also had another aspect about her, which was she was a good listener until she didn't want to listen anymore, and then she could really say, I've had enough, shut up. And so there have been many times when I've been in conversations with my Aunt Lily, and she says, okay, I'm done, go. She loved my daughters. Two of my daughter, her great nieces are here. She loved my daughters, and she loved to come and visit when I could get her to come. Sometimes it was more of a pain. I don't want to do it, or she would, at the last minute say, I'm not coming, I don't have to come, no one's going to make me come, I'm not coming. So there were a lot of times when I would get in the car and drive to 106th Street and Manhattan Avenue and say, get in the car. And we would go and do whatever it was we were going to do. And one of my last favorite memories, before she moved to, I can't remember if she had moved to Florida or was up visiting. I don't remember. She was at my house in Connecticut, and maybe this was about six or 7 years ago, and she came to visit. She came for a Thanksgiving, and we were sitting around the dining room table in the evening, and we were having a cocktail, and I poured her a vodka, and she just looked at me and said, can you just give me the bottle, please? And we were sitting around the table, and there was a bottle of vodka and a couple of glasses, and I've never seen my Aunt Lily get drunk. And she did, and she was a riot. And I remember that very fondly. And in the following morning, she got up and she said, "Please, please, don't, not again. I don't want to do that again." But I have very fond memories of my Aunt Lily. Last year, about a year ago, when she had moved to Florida and things were starting to fail a little bit, I went to Florida. My sister from California came out. My daughter Becky came out, and we were sitting around in the kitchen, and we were sort of reminiscing on my bubby, which was my grandmother, her mother. And I remember that I said, Aunt Lily, she wasn't the greatest cook, and neither was my mother, but she made a dish that I will forever know as Aunt Lily's prunes and potatoes. And it was a brisket, and it was onions, it was prunes, it was potatoes. She made it in a big stew pot. And when I called her and I said, I'm coming to visit, I need you to make prunes and potatoes, she did. It was inedible, but I ate it with gusto because it was really more of the memory, and just being there and being able to reminisce, and she was just, to the very end, she was right on top. And about 4 days before she passed away, she called me up. I was home. She called me up, and I think this is part of her personality. I said, "Oh, Aunt Lily, how are you? I'm planning on coming down in October. I had some days off. I was going to go down to Florida again in October." And I said, "What are you doing, Aunt Lily?" And she says, "Well, I'm sitting at the table, and I'm going through my phone book, and I'm calling everybody in the phone book, and I'm up to C, and I'm calling you." And then she said, "And after you, I'm going to call Joey, cousin Joe." She goes, "Nah, fat. I don't want to talk to him. I'm just going to move to the D's." And we had this little bit but it was her attitude. It was like, no one's ever going to make me do anything I don't want to, and I'm not going to call someone because I have to. I'm calling you because you're a C and I want to talk to you. And if I don't want to talk to you, I'm not going to talk to you. And it was just a feistiness about Aunt Lily that I will always remember. And when we were there, my daughter Becky, who's very interested in taking oral histories, took an oral history of Aunt Lily. Maybe we'll figure out a way to get that file sent to, if somebody wants to let me know where we could send it. But I will miss my Aunt Lily a lot. And there are days when I wake up and go, yeah, if I could talk to my Aunt Lily, I would. And I love her a great deal. And that was my Aunt Lily.
Would anyone else like to say? Good answer. That's my Aunt Lily. Yeah. So I really, in many ways, barely knew Lillian. I mean, Lillian was part of the Granny Peace Brigade, Grandmothers Against the War, but in terms of really spending time alone with her and really getting to know her, I can't claim that. But what is striking is how everything that's been said really fits so well, because I think of Lillian as a really tough lady. And there were times where I would be leading a meeting, and Lillian would always say parliamentary procedure, which of course was something, first of all, to herd the Granny Peace Brigade is much, much harder than herding cats. And there is Lillian basically saying parliamentary procedure, which is something I don't think I had heard about since college, especially since we do a lot of consensus in those days and not parliamentary procedure. But it was always so, but so I began to salute her. I would say parliamentary procedure. And the thing about Lillian was that underneath that, which some people have felt was formidable or, you know, really tough and hard, she really had a sense of humor. And she really she understood something about her saying, you know, let's do parliamentary procedure, and really took the kidding about it in a very, very lovely way. And there's something about, well, I think we're all tough. You know, I mean, in a way, if we're doing what we're doing, we've got to be tough. And some personalities hold the toughness or show the toughness in different ways. And Lillian's, both her physical presence and the energy was one of, you know, really, as you were saying, you know, this is the way it's done, and what's the expression? Don't broker any fools? Is that the expression?
Suffer.
Yeah? Suffer? Suffer. We need more tough people out there on the streets and taking stands. And so it's good to be here. I wish Lillian were here, but it's good to be here to celebrate her.
Could I ask you something? What year did the peace, your organization start? And was Lillian and you the founders among the beginning?
2005, right, is when we started.
2005.
And Joan Weil was really the originator of the Grandmothers Against the War, who then proposed the action in a way that action was developed from her suggestion, I believe. Am I correct? Yes.
She started Grandmothers Against the War. Well, we were at the first meeting at
That's
the
right.
Eleanor Roosevelt statue.
That's right.
And that was in 2004.
Four.
Were you there, Sally, too?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
it was in 2004.
That's
And then it was,
Marjorie from, I don't know if you remember Marjorie from Staten Island, Al-Qadi?
Yeah. yeah, and then it was, what happened was, you know, she had the idea, all the people, women, well, men too, would come down to Grandmothers Against the War demonstration every Wednesday. And we said, well, why don't we get all these women from different peace organizations together to decide what we're going to do. And we started meeting, and actually it was the Raging Grannies out in, was it Tucson, Arizona, who tried to enlist in the military, and they were arrested. And we had the video shown of the Raging Grannies, and then that sort of spawned us. And after the arrest in October 19th, was it? 17th. After the arrest, there was so much press coverage, both nationally and internationally. I think what we did was we all decided that we should stay together and form an organization. And we came from many, many organizations. And that's what happened.
And then became the Granny Peace Brigade.
Granny Peace Brigade. Then we decided to call Granny Peace Brigade.
Just go
Correct me
ahead.
if my
go ahead.
history is off.
I think Ann wants.
Yeah, I just want to add
Barbara.
something to what Phyllis said. The reason we became the Granny Peace Brigade is because we got so much press, and how long could they talk about a bunch of old ladies, you know, who had protested in front of the Times Square recruiting station. And so I think it was Joan who came up with the idea that we had to have an actual name. And once we had that name, the Granny Peace Brigade, I think we would have liked the Raging Grannies, but it was taken. The Raging Grannies. So once the Granny Peace Brigade name was taken, we sort of felt like now we were actually a group, and that we wanted to go on together.
Yeah, go ahead,
In the
Barbara.
press, they referred to us as the defiant gray-haired women once, which I really appreciated at the time. But I think the beauty of this group that formed was we were from so many different organizations. I was representing Code Pink, there was, Wilf was there,
Peace Action.
Peace
Peace
Action
Action
was
was
there,
there,
Grey
West End.
Panthers was there, so many. That's what we need to do, that everyone came together on that issue of the lies recruiters said to kids that we would then enlist and bring our kids home.
It's like a ripple effect.
Yeah, so 10 years later, we're
Still together.
still together, still doing it.
We've lost a number of members.
Yeah,
but-
no, not in,
Oh, you mean
No,
living?
too many.
You mean today?
how people moved away.
People moved away and people died. you know?
That's right.
No, when I heard about the Granny at the recruiting center, one thing passed through my mind is that I was sad that I was not there. I would have carried a big sign that says, "Grandpa's are against me." But I never had that opportunity.
It's never too late.
Yeah, it's not-
I go,
war.
Not for the grandpas.
I go back even further with Lillian, having to do with Peace Action, because she was chair of West Side Peace Action, and I was working in Brooklyn Heights and Brooklyn, and we used to have meetings of the metro section of Peace Action, and she would always be there, and we would discuss what we could do and how we could use our energy and give each other ideas and so forth. So we went back there, and then when she got ready, and you went to statue.
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yeah, the statue. She called me and told me about it, because she'd gotten it from Joan, okay? And that was the beginning of that. But as her relatives were talking, I couldn't believe that I remembered that it was definitely Lillian who told me about Semester at Sea. And that was without a doubt my most life-changing experience, and that's where I had heard about it and went, which was great. It's literally a semester at sea with 650 college students, and you travel all around the world. And it was fabulous. So that comes to mind, right? I can also remember when Lillian realized that West Side was a problem because they were losing members, and it was getting too small. Chester, you must remember this too, John, you too, that she changed it to Manhattan and tried to get Greenwich Village and some other chapters to come together, which was not easy to do because it meant to have a meeting. You had to travel so far sometimes. But she was right. What she was doing, yeah.
I just want to say one thing, in talking to Phyllis about, maybe you can say more about the community work that you worked with her on, but I got the impression that she had really big ideas. And when she talked to us about making Manhattan Peace Action, personally I thought, oh, that seems like a little ambitious for a small group that didn't necessarily have outreach in all the areas. But she was not afraid of big ideas. This is still a dream that hasn't been realized of hers, and we have to work on it. But she had many other dreams. Some of them worked out, and some of them didn't. But she kept on dreaming the impossible. And you have to have people like that who reach out beyond what other people think is possible. I don't know, Phyllis, I wrote some of the things down in here. I was just so impressed by the huge projects that you took
That
on.
she would take a good stab at. I mean, it was amazing. But I just want to tell you a story. We used to sit after demonstrations. I think it was Granny Peace Brigade demonstrations. A number of us were sitting and having coffee after, and she started telling us about her endeavors with her first husband in supporting the Spanish, the Civil War, Spanish Lincoln Brigade. Yes, and she said they would at night, when somebody was going over, they would sew money into remember when suitcases had linings? They would sew money into the linings of suitcases to send over, and I mean, we were just, oh my, wow, and that went to.
That was my Uncle Jack.
Yes. And to support the Abe Lincoln Brigade. And she also was very, very active in the Communist Party. And I attended a lot of really educational forums down on 23rd Street, and she was active down there too. She used to volunteer down there. But in terms of Manhattan Valley, which is an area, for those of you who don't know, from 100th Street to 110th, from Central Park to Amsterdam Avenue, we had a committee to save Manhattan Valley. This was long before you remember that. Committee to Save Manhattan Valley, and we used to meet religiously, and I tried to identify how we were going to, and that was considered no man's land at that time. People said that they were going to the Wild West if they ventured. I had cab drivers who wouldn't even take me there, and some would tell me, get out, don't give me money, just let me get out of here. And I mean, it was really, that's what but my kids in my building, my daughter all went to school in Manhattan Valley Public School. We were really trying to save the community, and buildings were burning down left and right. Landlords were burning them down, to get the money. But we finally established several committees. One was the housing clinic. We had to try to keep people who were living there from being harassed and put out of the community. And most of them were either elderly or they were so-called minority. They were Latino or Black. We also had a Manhattan Valley Development Corporation, the housing committee. Then tell me if there's anyone. Then we had Valley Restoration, which was a local development corporation, which Lil and I were a part of. And Lil worked very, very hard to get the building, which is now the International Youth Hostel on Amsterdam Avenue, and the only international youth hostel in New York. To get that building. We got that building from the city. We also, she tried, we had the first BID in New York City, the Business Improvement District, before the Times Square Business Improvement District. And we had our own, 4 workers that took care of Columbus Avenue and Amsterdam to try to keep the businesses, the mom and pop businesses there, and tried to help them. We had a lot of help from the state in terms of money. We had an employment agency, and it really was part-time employment. I think we only filled one full-time employment. A person was employed full-time, and that all dried up when Pataki became. Well, everything dried up when Pataki came in.
And the death penalty came back.
Yes, and the housing clinic, the money for the housing clinic went, everything went. So.
Don't forget Giuliani.
And Giuliani, yes. So it was tough times then, but we were able to get, Lil was really the prime mover. She was in there every day 5 days a week, she'd go to work. And she would write proposals for, for grants. And she was able to get several grants. But I cannot tell you the number of people we had to go to meet with to try to get those grants. And Lil was all the one behind it. She even tried to get a program for young people to become journeymen or apprentices to plumbers and to in the construction trade. And of course, when they saw two old ladies, older women, were going to be the ones that were shepherding the children through this, I think we lost. If we had somebody who was in the 30s or early 40s, we might have got the grant. But we were meeting with the union. She was really, I went along because I was, I think, head of the board or something like that. And she finally got, there were a number of things that we did do, plans that we just about went through and then fell apart at like a big community center, which was going to house a high school that the Department of Education needed, and Olympic swimming pool, track, and it was going to be adult education in the evening, and the track and the swimming pool were going to open at 6 in the morning. And it was just about all set. We had the architect, everything planned. And the person that Lil was dealing with in Queens was moved to a different position within the Department of Ed, and all of a sudden they brought these prefab buildings, prefab units, and put up the high school.
Oh, West Side High,
Yeah,
at
West Side
102nd
High.
Street in
Yeah,
Amsterdam,
and
right
so
next to Douglas House.
There's a number of, and we tried to have, she wrote a grant proposal for incubators. We were going to have incubators for people in the community who wanted to start their own businesses. I could go on and on and on, but it's so far-reaching what she did in terms of the grant proposals, the people that she dealt with to try to, enrich Manhattan Valley. It was just unbelievable. And I think she got pretty tired toward the end. I think some of the people from Manhattan Valley can say that she got pretty tired toward the end. Ann was one of the people that worked with Manhattan Valley. She got tired because a lot of the projects didn't go through, and I think together with her age and her health problems, that really took a toll.
It feels to me like it's history of real New York, of what people did in communities, probably all over the city, but I had no idea that this was part of Lillian's history and what she was doing while she was involved with Peace Action. I don't know if anybody else would like to say a few words, or...
She also, I just want to say one other thing. This is, I met her when she had a radio station together with a couple of other people who lived on Manhattan Avenue, a radio station that broadcasted, was broadcasting to Manhattan Valley. I mean, I think it's just amazing. And we were trying to keep drugs out of Manhattan Valley, and that's when I met her. And then all of a sudden, we had the coalition or the Committee to Save Manhattan Valley.
That was really great.
Someone,
Hi, yeah, I came in a little late. but
yeah, just let us know your name and...
Joyce.
Laura. I think the only person I know here now is Chester Meyer, Dorothy, and Ann. But I worked with, I got to know Lillian through Peace Action. I joined the group at the start of the Iraqi whole thing there. And all these years, I had no idea that Lillian, and I just wanted to say this, I was so happy, joyful to hear the work she did. And I never heard anything, and I used to go to meetings regularly, but I'm happy to hear it now, and I'm just so proud to have known someone like this, because they're so important to the community. And I hope there was a write-up, listing her accomplishments in one of the newspapers, because it's newsworthy, the local paper or whatever. But I was so happy to hear this. It really made my day. She's a wonderful woman and very hardworking, and I liked working with her. But like I said, this all came as news today to me. But I was glad to hear it.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you came, Joyce.
Chester?
Hi, I'm Chester Meyer. I was involved with peace action in the 80s and 90s to about 2003. And I guess I met Lillian around 93 or so. Apparently she'd been coming to the meetings at Westside Peace Action, but she wasn't active. And I was on the board. So I asked her to join, and she agreed. And about the following year, I was basically drafted to be president. And I did that solo for a year and then needed some help. So for 2 years, Lil and I were the co-presidents. And then in '97, she did it solo when I stepped down. And so I guess she was president of Westside Peace Action for about 15 or more years, like from '95. When did she move to Florida?
2012, I think. About 5 years ago.
So, so she was president for at least 15, maybe 17 years. And I mean, I had pretty much the same impressions of her that other people had. I guess what I liked about her was she had a lot of common sense. She could work with a lot of different people very effectively. She was the kind of person that knew what to say. She knew how to handle a lot of people. And as others have also pointed out, it was like amazing how many things she could seemingly do simultaneously. I mean, she was involved with peace action. This Valley Restoration was at one time a full-time job for her. And she had all these other contacts in the community where she not just attended, but she was, as people describe, actively involved in doing productive work. So it was really kind of amazing to watch her. And I guess it was kind of sad when she moved to Florida, like a lot of us were. Just trying to remember, I thought too that she was involved in at least another civil disobedience. It's kind of hard to remember because it goes back a ways, but I seem to remember her getting arrested downtown near the federal building to protest the Iraq War. A bunch of the grannies did an action down there. I don't remember it at, I don't remember the one in the Times Square. And I just wanted to say a few other things. Her daughter we couldn't get in touch with her daughter. I made a copy of the About page from her website. Her daughter's an astrologer. So her name's Ralphie, so you can read about Ralphie if you take a look at the pictures. Other people brought some pictures. They're on the table in the back of the room when we break. And the only other thing is, I guess, I was a little piqued, I guess, about Semester at Sea. Lil took her first trip just before the Iraq War started, and basically these were like 100-day trips during which she was essentially incommunicado. We couldn't get in touch with her. I remember talking to her in the run-up to the Iraq War, and why was she going away now? And she said, well, I guess this is one of the times that she was wrong. She said, either said it wasn't really going to happen, they would settle, or it wasn't going to last very long. And unfortunately, here we are. It's still a giant mess. But outside of that, I thought, knowing her and working her was a really great experience. And, I'm happy to meet with her friends and relatives today. I have to leave at 3:30. I hope no one's too offended. Just to let you know, it's not that I'm annoyed or anything, but I just have to go somewhere else. But thank you.
I remember when Aunt Lily moved to Florida, she called me up, and this was not that long ago, and I said, how's it going there? She says, I'm bored. These people are so old here, and I don't think I can get them to do anything. They just want to sit in the chair. I remember that. I just remember that.
She will tell me the same thing.
I'd like to just say a few quick things about Lily. I'm Becky. I'm Lily's great niece. And I think it's interesting, a lot of the stories that we're hearing today are around her activism and her visions for peace and her political involvement and how tough she was. And yes, she was very tough. coming from someone who worked at Fox News Channel for 3 years and had many political conversations with Lily, by the end of last year, converted to a communist. That's an exaggeration, but we always enjoyed these conversations, and I will agree, she did not like ignorance. But on the other side of Lily, she had this very tender side as well. And as my mom said, over the past few years, I was putting together some historical documents of her life and, many of the political projects that she was involved in, but also things about her family and how she met her husband, my great uncle Roy, and just different stories. And the way that she would talk about her family was just so sweet, and she just loved her family. And my great uncle Roy, she always talked about how he was her soulmate and how much she missed him. And the last conversations I had, she was really, really lonely. And when she passed away, I was so happy that I had the opportunity to have these interviews and stories, and I'll have them forever for my kids someday to look back on and know this amazing woman who rode the bus till she was 90 years old. But I took a little bit of peace knowing that she was now with her family and she was with Roy. She was not going to be lonely anymore. I miss Lily so much. I love her. But, I just wanted to leave on a note that there was this other side of her that maybe a lot of people didn't see. And she had a very sweet, tender side
heart.
as well.
Mirta Maldonado, who was with Lillian for more than 30 years, probably 35 years at Valley Restoration, can't be here today. She called me this morning and became very ill last night. But she said one of the things she wanted, that one of the fondest memories she had of Lil was Roy used to come and pick her up at the office, and they would go out holding hands and walking down the street holding hands. And she said we all would go and look and watch them walk down the street holding hands because it was so sweet. And I mean, that's just, to add what Mirta said that that's one of the things that she wanted to tell people.
Lydia wants to say something.
I'm just going to say something quickly because I have to leave, and it's important, or I wouldn't. But I wanted to say something about Lillian. That the word that Sheila used of feisty was, right, perfect. The way we're all talking about the same person. She was like an oak tree. She's just real, very connected. And I didn't know her well during the granny meetings because she was kind of off-putting when she would want this kind of ruling and whatever. But one day I got a phone call, and it was Lillian saying, I have an extra ticket for the Philharmonic tonight. Would you like to go with me? And I love music, so I said yes. And I thought, well, we'll be up in the balcony somewhere at Avery Fisher. No, it was the fourth row on the side, an all Prokofiev program. Gergiev was the conductor, and he doesn't use a baton, just uses his hands like this. It's magic. And the program was an early Prokofiev, the classical symphony, which could be written by Mozart. And the other was a real Prokofiev that we're used to, with thunder and lightning. It was a wonderful evening. She was delighted. I was seeing another side of her. It was just so lovely. So we go on because she's left a lot of seeds from her oak tree. Go on. Thank you.
If anybody wants to know what Lily's answer was when I asked her what the key to longevity was, a cup of gin a day. That's what she told me.
I'm Lily's neighbor from Manhattan Avenue, just a few doors down. My husband and I moved to the block in 1976. We were two full-time graduate students at Columbia. Could not get a mortgage. Seller was desperate to sell the house. New York was on the verge of bankruptcy, and we got our brownstone for $25,000. Already ensconced there was Lily and probably Jack at the time, if this is 76. Roy came later on. And the other two, old lefty communists on the street, as I was informed by my new neighbors, Kurt and Leah Schneider, and Estelle Tembach and her husband. As someone who came of age in college in the early 70s, these people, and the anti-Vietnam War demonstrations, and my husband and I went to college in Washington, D.C., so we were right in the center of it, Vietnam, Watergate, all that. These people were my heroes, and we looked up to them a great deal. I now feel I'm not one of the original pioneers on Manhattan Avenue in the brownstones, but I sort of feel like I'm about to inherit that mantle. We had another neighbor who was 94, pass away this past May across the street. He and Lillian didn't always see eye to eye politically, but I know her mainly from the neighborhood battle, the interest in the community, which I dearly love. There was, as Phyllis said, there was a time when there were many shell buildings, many vacant lots, landlord abandonment. My husband was a tenant lawyer. I was involved with starting Manhattan Valley Housing Clinic. Used to sit Lillian at the community board 7 meetings. There were many people who felt the city should not give any of these vacant buildings to social service agencies because that was just more problems we need. It was a lot of NIMBY. We can't have a residential drug treatment here. We can't have a juvenile facility here. We can't have a mental health facility here. Or the Young Mothers Program, Hale House. Those programs are what helped to save the neighborhood. My husband got us all organized on our block to get rid of the drug dealers. Lily also had a battle with an infamous landlord who was who built a building right next to her house and was causing her foundation problems, and she consulted with my husband, Doug, then, and I was involved with the hostel thing. She was always took my cue from her as to what side I should be on if there was any kind of neighborhood disagreement. My husband and I are both active in politics, but more mainstream stuff, so she would often chide me about what the Democratic Party was up to. I'd be out there with leaflets and my nominating petitions to get people on the ballot and campaigning at the subway stop. And we raised 2 children on the block who also went to public schools. They're 25 and 30, and they're actually both living at home on a temporary basis again. But she always asked, surprise, she always asked about my kids, and a few memories I have of her 90th birthday party recently. I got to go to that. I would occasionally make soup and bring her a container of soup. And I remember also talking to her about my trips to Fairway with my car after I retired and bringing her some pickled herring in cream sauce, which she hadn't had in years, and she said she was dying for. So.
That's great. Okay. Would anyone else like to say anything? Oh, I'm sorry, John.
I learned an awful lot today. And my name is John. I'm extremely glad that I came today. I learned an awful lot about Lillian today. And I thought one thing that hadn't been mentioned, but I understand now why she was so good at it. But I thought any event she ever ran always seemed to get a full house. And she really reached out and got these things going. And I wish I knew how to do it.
Yeah, I remember she brought Charlie Rangel to an event we had
a few years ago. And the place was packed. It was in one of the union buildings, I believe. 1199. Yeah, maybe it said 1199. Yeah, it was like a town hall.
My feeling is that Lillian had a lot of energy, as everybody has said. She was into a lot of things and could survive defeats because she had a longer range vision. You called it a dream of the future and how we would get there. And it's a struggle or it's a war, a class war. I think so many people see that today, and I think she would be feeling the burn if she were still alive today, as part of the struggle too.
Thank you, Esther.
All right, Joe. You want me to?
Yeah, hold me.
Yes, from behind the camera.
The man behind the camera.
It goes way back. I was one of her resources. She got me to come to Communist Party meetings and video Gus Hall. And I got on her list as somebody she could turn to for different kinds of help. And then I became her trucker, her mover. And I moved her stuff all over the place into her last apartment here on 106, 105.
106 in Manhattan Avenue.
Yeah. The reason I'm late arriving today was on the way here, in front of her thrift store, they had a woman on the street saying, "Share your memories." The door was open, they had white paper on the windows of the thrift store. And I wondered if they were part of this event. And I engaged the people involved, and they weren't aware of this event. And what they were doing was using that place to project from the inside the place into this white paper they were planning on using as a screen for the projection. Memorial now at 2 o'clock for Lillian. And they wanted people to share their memories of the whole neighborhood. So we can go there and grab a piece of the paper and share our memories about Lil. But overall, I do want to confess sadness. I disappointed Lillian in helping manage that thrift store into continued existence. That I remember being on the board, there were just 3 or 4 of us who were active. I went for raising the pay of the employees, and that turned out to be the kiss of death. Then they couldn't afford their expenses, and they used that as an argument to end the story. And I've been involved with the group that tried to bring the what would we call it? The various possibilities of what to use the space for, and it didn't go anywhere. That the landlord was incredibly patient, but ultimately he considered all his possibilities, and I think he's bringing 3-dimensional printing to the neighborhood as some opportunity for people with ideas to see them turn into something physical. In my conversations with her, I just wondered how disappointed she was that the thrift store didn't quite survive. I feel bad about that.
But 3D printing could be an innovation.
Yeah.
And people who have an idea that they'd like to see, I think would certainly be an okay thing for Aunt Lily in terms of moving on. So, you know, if you couldn't control the circumstances for the thrift store, and you look at whatever the opportunities were, somebody could have turned it into a Gap. Lord knows we don't need any more of those. So I think the idea of perhaps putting a creative piece there about 3D printing and seeing an idea come to fruition would be right up Aunt Lily's alley. So I release you of the responsibility of your guilt.
Ah, thank you.
Now on you.
Good. Lorenzo, do you want to say something?
I really didn't know Lillian that well because I'm a latecomer, but one thing I'll never forget was she was one of these people, I turned it off. Oops. It comes from the era when people were very versatile and adept at conversation. Because one of my big complaints now is that people don't really know how to converse very well. And I have a suspicion that maybe 100 years ago or more, when we didn't have TV or radio and things like that, people were much more adept at conversation because they had to entertain themselves. So, but I think Lillian had a touch of that too. And the example I'm going to use is I was telling her one of the time I was, I don't know, talking to her after a meeting or something, And I said, well, I'm going to have to go to a court appearance. I'm not going to be able to make it to such and such an event. She said, oh, what happened? I said, I got a driving ticket. I was trying to make a right-hand turn from the left lane, and they gave me a ticket for it. And she said, oh, what we all need to do is make a left-hand turn from the right lane. So I knew I was talking to somebody who could bandy words. But yeah, I'll never forget her. She was feisty and very lovable. She kept this group going for a generation or so, so we passed it on. So it's great to see everybody here.
I just have a question. Is there still a peace action type group?
Yeah.
There is? I never hear about it much.
And you are?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was a good question.
I was in the Sun Peace Action. I was very active.
Yeah, we meet here Thursday, the first Thursday of every month at 7 p.m.
Here.
Where? In the
Oh, in the
front
garden?
room.
Oh, in this...
In the front room, please join us.
And there should be a sign-in sheet back here. You can put
There's
your
a
name.
sign-in sheet
I
right
did.
over there if you'd like
I
to
did
get our
put my
emails.
name.
You'll be contacted if the material is legible.
Just give them your email address.
I did. No, I didn't.
I just wanted to say we're going to have some refreshments now and also have some entertainment, but I'm going to pass around a basket to help pay for the rent room rent. Okay, if you have $1 or $2, something.
I just want to thank Peace Action. I want to thank please putting this together so that we could memorialize Lillian.
She deserves the credit.
Thanks so much.
And
Thanks
Sally.
so much. Sally.
Lillian.
No, correct. But, you know, my son was in China. Everybody's trying not just
Before we break for refreshments, we all sing together.
Get your attention, please. Can we get your attention, please? Crank up your hearing aids. I'm over here.
All right, so we thought before we break for refreshments that we would just join in singing a song for Lillian. And so David Jones is going to
Accompany all of us singing an old spiritual. I, of course, thought of By and By When the Morning Comes, but I was told that I was going to play This Little Light of Mine. And of course, I've got the usual complaints this morning. Let me get all the excuses out of the way. Arthritis is kicking my respective parts, so bear with me as we stumble along singing this song. I think I'll make some kind of an intro and we'll all figure out, you know, when to come in, right?
This little light of peace, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it